Welcome to the Water Trough, where we can't make you drink, but we will make you think. My name is Ed Drozd of the Small Business Doctor, and I'm really excited you chose to join me here as we discuss topics that are important for small business folks just like you. If you're looking for ideas, inspiration, and possibility, you've come to the right place. Join us as we take steps to help you create the healthy business that you've always wanted. Welcome back to the Water Trough. This is Ed Drozd of the Small Business Doctor. When I say culture, what comes to mind? In a broader sense, we might think about a community culture or perhaps a country culture. But what about business culture? What exactly is it, and just how important is it in getting things done? Business culture is comprised of many things, and there are many definitions to describe what business culture is. I like to think of business culture as an amalgamation of the individuals working within the business, their collective values, the goals of the business, and the direction provided by leadership. Moreover, it's a way in which the people in a business function, considering all these things, when they're all thrown together in, shall we say, a big pot. In other words, culture is like a stew. The ingredients, a variety of personal, business, and broadly speaking, human elements, are thrown into a pot and mixed together. Ideally, the result is a good-tasting, harmonious stew. This stew defines the day-to-day experience within a business, as well as the perception that those outside the business will observe. Okay, fine. Maybe it's too simplistic, but I think you got the idea. Culture is an evolutionary thing. One of the best ways to think of this is through the lens of a startup company. Other than the vision and ambition of its founders, a startup is a clean slate. The same can be said for its culture. The founder has a sense of how things will look and feel, how things will get done, and so on. Surely they have the right to envision and establish the culture. For example, a business founder may envision that employee autonomy will be highly valued. This will be a founding ingredient in the company culture. The founder will take steps to foster this ingredient, and it will take root. While the business is small, the culture will be in a somewhat rigid state. That is, the founders will be able to directly manage the culture and will be able to take steps to maintain or to tweak it as they see fit. Startups are meant to grow, however, and it's for that reason the culture is a living thing. The founder may have intended to have a particular culture, but with the addition of more people, the culture will evolve as well. Now, this doesn't mean that maintaining a culture is impossible, but it is critical to monitor the culture to ensure that it's supporting the business effectively. What might have been appropriate at the inception of a company will no longer be effective when that company has grown to 10, 20, 100 people or more. They're simply not the same business at that point, and thus the culture is a different thing as well. Since culture is an amalgamation of so many components, and because companies evolve and grow, culture itself has to grow and evolve in order to be an effective agent in helping the company to thrive. Because people are hired into a company, there is going to be repeated, if not constant, challenges to the integrity, to the very nature of the culture that's in place. Once again, in a startup, early on, the idea of culture can be formulated by the founder and can be easily managed and adjusted to their satisfaction. But as more people come into a company, culture is, for lack of a better word, diluted. More people in a company will lead to different perspectives on how business is done. More layers in the management of a company will lead to an opportunity for interpretation of the dictums that are forthcoming from leadership. All of these things impact culture at a very fundamental level. The notion that we can maintain complete control over a culture over the course of time is somewhat misguided. We can maintain adequate control to ensure that we have a company doing what we intend it to do. But the notion that we can have complete and utter control over culture is something that has to be really carefully thought through, rather than just expecting that we're going to have the ability to control culture. We should consider the importance of monitoring culture. Culture is both an intentional thing, that is, it is the creation of the founder, as well as a means to achieve the things that we want to do. And so, as the company evolves, we have to ensure that the effectiveness of the culture is aligned with our larger business goals. As I mentioned earlier, a company of one is a lot different than a company of 100 or more people. And the culture that we envisioned when it was a founding member of a company, it may just not be adequate when there's 100 employees, multiple layers of management, and a variety of new processes and business elements to consider. It's being open-minded and aware of how that culture is working that is important. To some degree, because culture is comprised largely of the human element, it can take on a life of its own. Culture can become its own entity. Even though we think we're exerting control over it, it can take off in directions that we may not have anticipated. That's not a bad thing in and of itself. Again, it's important that we maintain vigilance. Perhaps the founder's idea of what the culture should be has changed. And if it's a matter of holding on to it because I wanted it that way in the beginning, that is not the right way to look at things. It's important to consider that culture is a synergistic factor in our success. In fact, it's absolutely critical in our success. It is necessary that we make sure that it's aligned with what we're looking to accomplish. If that means letting go of our preconceived notion of how it looks, so be it. We have to let it go. We have to move forward from there and accept that things have changed. In our next episode, I'd like to discuss the importance of culture in business success and why it's so important that we maintain that diligence about the effectiveness of our culture in our work performance. Until next time, this is Ed Drozd of the Small Business Doctor. From the Water Trough, I want to wish you a healthy business. Bye. And we spent the